In this video, we hiked 10 miles into the Eagle Cap Wilderness. This was a training trip to help get in shape and test some equipment. Here's our group. First we have Sam. He's been training like a beast and had no problem with the steep terrain and the heavy backpack. Next we have Charlie. She was not going to be left behind for anything, but her challenge was going to be getting these little legs up the full 10-mile distance to camp. Next we have Commodore. He's our guard dog. He makes sure the rest of us are okay. Then there's Kim. She was completely unstoppable and marched the entire 10 miles to camp without problem. We enjoyed a lot of beautiful country during the hike. The trail is actually rated as difficult, and nobody disagreed with that rating by the time we got to camp. We were taking our time and enjoying ourselves. When we got to this bridge, we began to wonder when we would see Sam again. He had run back to the truck to get his fishing pole, so Kate decided to do some ballet, and we were just enjoying being outdoors. And then we looked behind, and here comes Sam running up the trail. Here's the fishing pole he went back to get. That run back to the truck added an additional 4 miles to the 10-mile hike that we were doing. After crossing the bridge, that's the demarcation point, and from that point forward, it's switchbacks and pretty serious uphill. But eventually you get to this lake. This was our destination. Here we are all coming in and crossing the log jam. This is Kate. She was a super girl through the entire process. Got across the log jam with no problem. And here comes Sam with Charlie. Poor little Charlie required a little assistance, and Commodore made sure she was okay. Kim comes across with no problem, and we get camp set up and get ready to enjoy a nice evening. Kate helps top off our water supply, and that was the end of day one. The next morning, my wife and I enjoyed coffee together, but others at camp clearly misinterpreted the moment. So we then set out to do some hiking, exploring, and a little bit of fishing. We crossed the log jam and headed towards the south side of the lake. Kate and I decided to explore this area down by the lake. Sam, on the other hand, decided to summit this mountain. So he took off to do that, and I tried to do a little fishing along the way. That's me. And as you can see, it's just a beautiful lake. So I fished for a little while, and then Kate and I just had a lot of fun hiking, exploring, and seeing what we could find on that side of the lake. When we were done, we headed back, and on that trail just off to the right in the water, there's a shelf, and I fished it for a little while and finally hooked into a fish. This guy actually swam right by me and then turned around and swam back. As you can see, it's a nice little brookie. If he stretches out with all his might, he might make 8 inches, but that's about the size of the fish that we were seeing there. He was a ton of fun to catch, and then Sam, as you saw, fished for a little while. We headed back to camp, and that was the end of day 2. The next morning, we enjoyed the lake for a little while and then packed up, and we began our hike back down the mountain. First thing was to go back across the log bridge that separates the camping area from the rest of the trail. Everybody got across with no problem. Here comes Charlie. There is one log there that sinks. You learn pretty quick which one it is. Kim comes across again with no problem, and then we start hiking down. We took a little bit more footage on the way down so that you could see what the trail looks like. There are a lot of switchbacks, a lot of rocky terrain. It's pretty steep, but there are plenty of opportunities to filter water along the way. So we're now on the 3rd day of our adventure, and I realized that there's about 20,000 steps in 10 miles. Sam wasn't worried about it, but the rest of us must have done about, I don't know, maybe upwards of 50,000 steps over the course of 3 days. Poor little Charlie on those short little legs. It was the hardest for her. So here's some of the switchbacks that I mentioned. I wanted to record this to show you the switchbacks, but one of the downsides of doing that is you have to actually go back and get your GoPro, unless you have Sam with you. In that case, Sam will get your GoPro in half the time that it would ever take you to go back and get your GoPro. and he's not worried about doing that. He's a good man. So as we're going down through these sections, you can see that it's relatively steep, and we were going pretty light on water, and our plan was to get down through these switchbacks to a stream and take a break, get something to eat, and get some water. That seemed to work really well for us. Charlie got there first, had the first drink, followed by Commodore, and then the water pumps came out and everybody filled up their water bottles. So we rested there for a little while, and then after our break we started the next section. Now, during this next section, we're more into the middle of the day. It's getting hotter, and we needed to move through it quicker just to get out of the sun and into some shade. Now, this is how my feet felt at about this point. We finally get to the bridge, and it's all home free from there. We took a couple more pictures, and at that point, we're back at the car. Here's our victory fist bump. And that was it, guys. It's all good fun. Thanks for watching.